Hi, I'm John Green, and this is Crash Course Cryptozoology and Midwestern Panic Attacks. And today we're going to be looking at one of the weirdest mysteries in American history, the Van Meter Visitor. In 1903, a bunch of respectable townspeople in the town of Van Meter, Iowa, claimed they saw a massive half bat and half human creature with a glowing horn terrorizing their town for 5 days and 5 nights. So, was it a monster, a hoax, a misinterpretation, or just a really massive owl? In late September and early October of 1903, the town of Van Meter was terrorized by a creature now known as the Van Meter Visitor. The creature was described as being around 7 to 8 feet tall, half human and half bat, with a horrible stench and a blinding light that came out of a blunt horn on its head. This cryptic creature was sometimes spotted with a second, smaller creature that looked just like it. These two creatures and their mystery has remained one of the most peculiar stories in the American 21st century. The creature was first spotted at 1 a.m. on Tuesday, September 9th, by U.G. Griffith. He approached it, confused, believing it was robbers. Once he saw its shape, he told other townspeople to no avail. Nobody believed him, despite being a respectable worker in the town. The next night, Dr. Alcott was woken up to its blinding light shining right through his window. He ran outside with his gun and shot it 5 times after seeing its figure, but had to sprint back inside after he realized that his first 5 bullets had done nothing and he only had 1 remaining. Clarence Peter Dunn saw it on Thursday morning, and while believing he was protecting his bank from robbers, after hearing what he described as garbled gasps of air, he also shot it, and it still did nothing. Other accounts from people like L.L. Abernathy, O.V. White, Sidney Gregg, and J.L. Pratt Jr. describe it hopping from a building to a telephone pole, entering or exiting the local mine, or even other attacks. Finally, after discovering that shelters in the mines, townspeople heard its shrieks while exploring the abandoned mines, and the next morning, all of the a bunch of the people in the town gathered outside of the mines with guns, waiting for it to return to the mines for shelter. Once the Van Meter Visitor flew down toward them to enter the mines, they rained bullets on the creature, continuing to be useless. The bullets still did nothing, it just bounced off. Once the visitor was inside the mines, they sealed it, never to be seen again. Or so they thought. Very little is actually known about the Van Meter Visitor, which has led to much speculation as to its true identity. Many people believe that it was a practical joke played, while others believe that it was just a large owl or other bird. There is also evidence that there could be connections to UFOs or aliens, or even ultra-terrestrials, which are non-human entities that are often described as beings that exist in a non-physical state, are interdimensional, or are somehow concealed on Earth. All of these theories have strong evidence. However, each piece of evidence has deep flaws in the argument that make it nearly, if not totally, impossible. Another very interesting and intriguing aspect of the Van Meter Visitor is the timeline of its popularity. After it originally terrorized the town, once the news stories died down, less than a month later, the legend nearly totally disappeared. The legend of the Van Meter Visitor continued to be forgotten for over 100 years before being discovered again. After it was rediscovered, it grew to immense sizes, with an annual festival happening in Van Meter, at the end of September, celebrating the visitor. Other things also came to fruition, like the newspapers from the time being published online, and a book from Chad Lewis, Noah Voss, and Kevin Lee Nelson, which spread the story far among other cryptozoology fans. This all brings up the question, what other mysteries have been lost to history? Let's go to the thought bubble. Imagine you're U.G. Griffith after seeing the Van Meter visitor. You're a smart and respectable townsperson, but seeing the visitor for the first time ever is a terrifying experience. No matter who you tell, other people treat you like you're going insane, because let's be honest, it is insane. Finally, after a whole day of seeing that after a scary, traumatic experience, another person sees it. Finally, after all of this, rumors start to spread of the story's credibility, but it still doesn't take a hold for another 18 hours. Since the initial sightings in 1903, reports of the Van Meter visitor haven't completely disappeared. In fact, they've popped up here and there over the years. Locals and cryptozoology fans have claimed to see similar creatures lurking in and around Van Meter, often describing them as large, bat-like beings with glowing eyes and strange lights. Some folks believe that the Van Meter visitor has become a symbol of the unknown, inspiring investigations and expeditions to uncover the truth behind these sightings. The legend lives on, as people are still eager to connect with the mystery that once terrified their town. Interestingly, during the same time as the Van Meter visitor sightings, there were other reports of strange winged creatures popping up across the United States. Notable examples include the Mothman in West Virginia and the Jersey Devil in New Jersey, both of which captured the public's imagination. These creatures shared some eerie similarities with the Van Meter visitor. Huge wings, creepy appearances, and a knack for causing fear and panic in local communities. These sightings fueled the belief in cryptids and contributed to a growing fascination with the paranormal. The simultaneous emergence of these legends show that the early 1900s were a wild time for folklore, where tales of the supernatural and fear intertwined in a way that captivated many. It's time for the mystery document. Des Moines, Iowa, October 10th. The town of Van Meter, containing 1,000 persons, is terribly wrought up by what is described as a horrible monster. Every man, woman, and child in the town is in a state of terror, and fully half of them fail to close their eyes in slumber except in broad daylight. The monster put in its appearance Monday night. U.G. Griffith, an implement dealer, drove into town at 1 a.m. and saw what seemed to be an electric searchlight on Maher and Griggs' store. While he grazed, it sailed across to another building and then disappeared. His story was not believed the next day, but the following night, Dr. A.C. Olcott, who sleeps in his office on the principal street, was awakened by a bright light shining in his face. He grabbed a shotgun and ran outside the building, where he saw a monster, seemingly half human and half beast, with great bat-like wings. A dazzling light that fairly blinded him came from a blunt horn-like protuberance in the middle of the animal's forehead, and it gave off such a stupefying odor that it almost overcame him. The doctor discharged his weapon and fled into his office, barring doors and windows, and remained there in abject terror until the morning. Well, Stan, I think this one is a newspaper. It's the first guy in the Dallas County newspaper in Des Moines. It's the one that's by H.H. Phillips. Am I right? Yes, I don't have to deal with the shock pen.
Yes, Kellen,
Thanks,
you're right.
So, what can we learn from the Van Meter visitor and strange story? It didn't just terrorize Van Meter for 5 nights. It also changed the way people think about local legends in Iowa. The sighting sparked fear and curiosity, which has stayed with the community for over a century. It turned into a symbol for the unknown, being connected to other strange sightings to keep folklore alive. Cryptozoology fans are able to continue to share their theories and even some experiences about the visitor, showing how much it still means to the culture of Iowa. The growth of popularity for the Van Meter visitor helps bring people to have a strong sense of pride in their community. It helps to show how folklore can bring people together and turn fear into fun and curiosity. This renewed interest even helps to show how storytelling is important in keeping history alive. All of these different forms of journalism, young and old, help younger generations to discover this legend, along with others, that help folklore to continue growing well into the future. The Van Meter visitor helps to teach us that folklore isn't just old tales. It grows and changes like us, reflecting our own fears and dreams. All in all, the Van Meter visitor helps us embrace who we are, our history, and how we can continue growing as people. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Crash Course is produced and directed by Kellen Balmer-Brown. Our script supervisor is Kellen Balmer-Brown. The show was written by my high school history teacher, Kellen Balmer-Brown, and myself, Kellen Balmer-Brown. Edited by Kellen and Kellen Balmer-Brown. The associate producer is Kellen Balmer-Brown, and our graphics team is Kellen Balmer-Brown and Thought Bubble. Last but definitely not least, huge thanks to Chad Lewis, a major researcher of the Van Meter visitor and somebody that I had the honor of talking to directly for some very helpful information. Thank you, Chad.